All right, welcome to another episode. Today we have the lovely Breanna Danielle. She is a breathwork and fitness specialist. She loves hosting retreats and her podcast M3. She's currently working on helping more people tap into the power of movement, mindset, and medicine. Breanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So let's dive right in because when it comes to entrepreneurship and just being in the game, there's these two camps, right? There's the camp that is like, let's grind, let's hustle. But then also there's this other camp where it's like, hey, let's maybe tap into an energy of allowance and creation, right? Which sounds like maybe that's what you're about. So for the entrepreneurs out there who are maybe stuck in a hustle culture, how do we get them out of that and get into a space of more creation and less like trying to chase?
I feel like a lot of it has to do with structure, accountability, and also making a scheduled time frame, like time blocking, where you can
Mm,
have creative time and structured time. So I'm a big fan of having things done with maybe three top priorities that I have done for the day. And if I get those
mm,
three things done in the day, I feel very accomplished. And then if there's any extra room or playtime that I have available, I actually block it out in a time block on the calendar and give myself some space for creative freedom. Sometimes I like to do it in the
mm,
morning, sometimes I like to do it in the afternoon, but I do prefer a time where usually I'm caffeinated and I work best in the morning. And so
mm.
I just know that that's my individual body clock's time to be fully functioning both brain and body wise.
Beautiful. And so then let's say that you have the time blocks and you're ready to go, but then something happens, right? Like you get distracted or something pulls you in a different direction. What's your advice to get back into that like mental state or emotional state of moving forward and creating versus sometimes we can get derailed and then we say, oh, well, I only have 15 minutes on my time block left. Should I even do that? But what do you do to get back into the game in that sense?
That happens to me all the time. Honestly, we have these little devices in our hands all day long that are distracting us and taking away our attention. And I'm here for it, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I just wish that we could throw these out the window sometimes. But what I do like is I will also tell myself to get into some sort of flow state. So whether it's movement of the body or movement of the mind, where it's like journaling or dancing or something where I feel like I can just shake it out, do a little bit of breath work, do some
Mm,
EFT tapping.
mm,
That also will help me just get myself to regulate and reset myself back into a flow
yes.
state so then I can get my body and brain creatively thinking and working.
Yes, that's powerful. And that's actually a topic I've seen a lot recently is this idea of like nervous system regulation and just rebalancing. How important has that been for you? Also, for those of you who aren't following her on Instagram, go check it out. There's a lot of valuable content. And one of your posts was the journey, right? And just overcoming certain trauma. So how has that nervous system regulation played into your journey through all of that?
It's everything. It's an essential. It's what people call a non-negotiable. It's something that I have to do, I have to get done because otherwise I get back into my head and not into my body. And I constantly have
Um,
to reset myself into a place where I can flow and think and be free. And a lot of that comes from practice, a lot of therapy, and
mm,
a lot of just skill setting where it's the journaling. It's hard to sit down and give your attention to a piece of paper and put yourself in a flow state there, but if I do a little bit of EFT tapping, if I pray, if I
mm.
meditate, then I get myself to be more creative in that flow state and journal, and then that gives me the ideas to maybe drop a podcast or to put something out for a program for for a client.
Mm,
But I get to a point where I will I need to get to a point where I'm relaxed,
yes.
but still alert and still in a place that makes me feel like I'm safe more than anything.
Tell me more about that because I think sometimes we might believe we're safe, but maybe we won't feel like we're safe. So, how do you go about determining that?
The safety piece is a subconscious thing that I notice I have to bring into a conscious state. And
Mhm.
so I will be in a safe environment, but sometimes my subconscious is telling me, like, oh my gosh, we need to freak out. And now is the time for alert, alert, alert. And I will get to a place where I have to tell myself we're safe in the body. It'll
Mm,
usually be like hand touching. I'm very sensory. So I'm just putting my hands on my body and just squeezing myself, giving myself little hugs and telling myself, like, we're okay. We are safe in this body. I'm a huge component or a fan of words of affirmation. So words to me are very important, and I feel like it
mm,
has a lot to do with the words that we tell ourselves, the affirmations we tell ourselves that get us back into a place that feels mentally safe. And so
mm.
that to me is a big one, where safety isn't just a physical thing but a mental thing as well too, that we have to be feeling safe in our own minds and in our own thought processes.
Absolutely. So, what are some of those we would call it like a language pattern, right? Or what's some of the self talk that goes on that helps you get back? Well, two things helps you get back into a feeling of safety, but also, um, I'm sure there's been times where you're in that peak flow state and you feel, I don't know, unstoppable or like just super creative and like very confident, right? So, talk us through the self-talk when you get back into safety, but also when you want to get into like the most um, confident version of yourself.
A lot of it has to do with the conversation I have with God. It's daily, it's all day long. It's every moment of the day is just in a thought process. And so I will discern my thoughts between what is God and what is
Mm,
not, and remind myself, like, when I'm speaking to God, I feel safe. And when I am
mm,
questioning my own thoughts or feeling overwhelmed, I'm like, oh, okay, these are thoughts that are not coming from a godly, manner. And I just noticed that it gets me back into a state of prayer. So prayer to me is just something that makes anxiety go away. It makes me feel safe. And that to me is like an automatic default. And
mm.
I just feel like if you communicate with God more often, you tend to have a more safe space internally, or with your inner dialogue that you have talking to yourself.
Absolutely, because you brought up a very important topic, which is overwhelm, right? So, as entrepreneurs or as coaches, we can be dealing with a lot of different things. So, for you, at what point did you realize prayer is it? Like, that's like the main thing for you. What happened, or at what point?
I mean, it used to start. It still happens every so often, but it had started in the shower and was like the ugly cry down on my
Mm.
knees, just letting the
Yeah.
water fall and feeling safe in the shower, right? That was like an
Mm,
automatic thing for me. Was people put themselves in a flow state, let's say roller skating or surfing physically, but for me, being in water is a place that feels very safe and flowy for me. So I
yeah.
love having running water on my body. Again, sensory is a very big thing for me. So
Yes.
that to me is just, I give advice to people is figure out what it is that makes you feel safe, whether it's your environment or the activity that you're doing or the thoughts that you have that make you feel safe, and use that as a form of prayer to get yourself into a place where you can communicate with the body and communicate with the mind, and then get back into a state that your soul feels like it's all in one and you're yourself again.
Wow, yeah, and I think would you say that's why you're very much also into breath work because it allows you to like tap into all those things at once?
Yeah, breathwork is just such an out of body experience, and it gets you into a place that you don't necessarily feel like you're trapped in one physical conformant, right? So like you have just the body, just the
Mm,
mind right there, and those things are separate from the soul, and you can separate yourself out of this body experience. And so I love that when people do breath work, they tend to go into a different realm or a state of mind or a sense of being, that they're not necessarily attached to the physical component.
mm.
And I feel like breath work is a way where we can reset ourselves to come back to the body, right? So we leave the body a little bit and then we come back to the body. And that to me comes to a place where I feel like we we create that space for safety.
Yes, 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 and that's the piece. So for then those who are busy and they understand the idea of breath work and creating space, but they're like got stuff to do. What do you recommend for them? Do you have like post lunch or afternoon routine, or like, I know structure is important and these time blocks, but what would you recommend for someone who feels like their calendar's already packed and they've got a lot going on? What's the advice there?
I mean, you can reset yourself in just a few short breaths, right? Just taking a 3-second inhalation in and a 3-second inhalation out. And that right
Mm,
there is just a simple practice, one breath in, one breath out, that can get you
mm.
to rethink something in a different perspective or in a different way. And I'm a huge fan of taking the short bursts of energy and then running with them when you have them. Or also, if you feel overwhelmed, taking the short breaks and utilizing those to get yourself back into a place that feels calm and collected.
Okay, see, that's an important distinction because even for myself, right? Like I know that, but when I think about meditation or breath work or journaling, I feel like it's a whole thing. Like it needs to be 30 minutes or like 15 minutes at least, right? But what you're shedding light on is it's actually in the moment. It could be whatever that was, right? 5 seconds of breathing in and breathing out. What are some other distinctions like that that people should be aware of that can really help them elevate their state and get back into a good feeling place?
I mean, you can change your mind like that, right? You can instantly change your mind. You can instantly change your state of thought processing. You can change your physical state. You can change your anxiety. All of it comes with the snap of a finger. And so it doesn't have to
Mm.
be a 30-minute journaling
Ah,
session to get yourself back into that safety feeling, but or even a place where you feel calm, or a place where you feel like accomplished, right? People tend to check off the boxes and they journal and meditate because they think that they need to do something to feel accomplished. And it's
yes.
like, no, you can just write down one sentence, one word, hold on to that word for the day. And even just getting your finger to a pen with a paper and allowing yourself to draw, scribble, write a circle. I have
Mm.
friends who don't want to journal in a day, and they'll just start scribbling palm trees, and they're like, that just made me feel better right then and there. And I'm here for it. So I believe that if you can get into a place where you just take those bursts of energy, like I had mentioned, or breaks, and you take them for a
Mm.
quick second, that to me is just enough to get yourself back into that state of mind.
I love that. So let's say that someone's been doing that, right? But they still don't, or they still feel like it's a pattern that keeps coming up for them. I know you mentioned maybe therapy or some things you've gone through. At what point did you make the decision, hey, these tools are great, but maybe I need something else?
I mean, there's a lot that I needed. I still need a lot of help. And just I'm so sad because, side note, my therapist is pregnant and so she's leaving, and I'm over here like, okay, now I've got to reshare my entire testimony to somebody else and build the relationship with them. It's
Um,
almost like having a breakup and having a new relationship, right? And so people
mm,
tend to feel like the whole world is falling apart at times, and they have to
mhm,
reset their relationship. They have to reset themselves, or they also have to rebuild from scratch. And so I can't even tell you how many times I think about somebody who's in AA and is sober, and they might have to reset their number of sobriety, of going back, you
mm,
choosing the vice, coming back into it. And so it's kind of the same thing as like feeling overwhelmed or feeling anxious or going to numb out with a vice, and
mhm,
reminding yourself that, number one, it's never too late to ask for help. You can always ask for help, and you can always reset yourself again and restart over. Number two, right?
yeah,
So that to me is a big one: is ask for help, number one. Number two, reset yourself over and over as many times as you need to. And that just hitting the restart button again
mhm,
is one of the biggest ways that you can show up for yourself. And then number three is, I'm a huge fan of discipline and consistency. So if you can be
mm,
consistent and you can still choose, and finding an accountability partner is huge. That's why people hire coaches. That's why people have friends and mentors and people that are there to look after them. And you need to share your story with someone. That's why a therapist is so important, is to talk and reflect and to bounce ideas back and forth with someone, where it's not you feeling crazy inside your head this whole time. you know?
Yes, yes, yes. And what about for those who maybe in like what's the word I'm looking for here, right? In a way they try to do that with AI, right? They have the voice thing and then they talk to it. Have you tried that, or what would you recommend people who maybe are just like, well, no, I don't need a therapist, like I can just figure it out? Because sometimes we're stubborn, right? Sometimes we know we need help, but then maybe we don't seek it.
I've had several friends, and myself included, reach out and ask for help, whether it's boyfriend issues or relationship stuff, right? I know that they've had a like chat GPT therapist, and they will ask the question on there. I will be honest, there are times when I have had thoughts of harming myself or hurting myself, and those are just being very vulnerable here, right?
Mm,
But I'll ask questions to chat, and it's okay because in my opinion I think it's like not that the action is okay, but it's okay to have the perspective of something or someone else. And so
yeah.
using AI I think is a benefit because it's a friend in a
Mm,
pocket, and it helps a lot. Is it the same as having real emotions and feelings attached to it? No, but you get an unbiased opinion of something that feels very logical and takes you out of your own emotions and puts you back into a state of logic, I think.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because so then there's a pattern there, right? Where sometimes our emotions override us, and a part of it is letting go and like surrendering. Or what has been your experience with tapping into, let's say, the Bible or God or prayer as a form of surrender?
Oh my goodness, that to me is the best thing ever, right? Reading the Bible is has been one of the easiest ways for me to take away my anxiety.
Mm,
And I will again be very vulnerable and share that I quit smoking marijuana,
mm,
and that's just something that convicted me during reading my time reading the Bible. I went to be completely sober and was like, all right, I want to get myself into a place where I have clear
mm,
thoughts and clear mind and a clear head. And so what I noticed is my convictions have also now surfaced to dreams and my nightmares. And so I will wake up in the middle of the night and have these horrible, terrible dreams where opening up the Bible and taking me to that place just gets rid of it, puts me back into it. And I just trust in the word of God. And so that to me is a huge component is where do you trust, whether it's the
right.
partner that you're sleeping next to feel safe, or the word of God, or being in your own body, your own thoughts, like I just
Mm.
mentioned earlier, like those things are trusting in yourself, trusting in others, and trusting in God, I think is huge.
Yeah, and from your experience, like, why is it so hard to trust ourselves?
I think because we have not just one voice, but many voices talking to us inside our heads. I don't know about you, but that's what happens to me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I feel like it's at a point where I have to, I had said earlier, discern the difference between what is God and what
Yeah.
is not God. And so we are human. We are obviously thinking human thoughts, and we have not hundreds, but maybe tens of thousands of thoughts throughout the day, 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm at a point where it it's hard for me to keep up with what is for me, what is not for me. But if I am able to jot it down, journal it, and even just writing in my notes on my phone and just be like, okay, this is a thought for prayer for later, and just have that
Mm,
conversation and just be like, God, is this for me? Is this me doubting myself? And it's a negative or a positive charge of energy.
mm,
So to me, it's like if that is something that's boosting you up, it's lighting you up, it's giving you life and energy, then it's probably for you. If it's something
mhm.
that's draining you, limiting you, or holding you down, it's probably not for you.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a belief system there, right?
Yes.
Another belief system is like, I don't have to believe every thought that I think, right? So what are other beliefs that we can have as maybe weapons against the overwhelm and all these things that come up? What are some other beliefs that you have that have really helped you?
Hmm. I think a lot of that comes down to the affirmation building again, and me having the conversations with myself, building up the inner dialogue and building up the confidence too.
Mhm.
But I feel like if I'm a person who builds my quote unquote integrity muscle, then I'm also building character and I'm building self esteem and I'm building trust in myself. And that
Mm,
allows me to love myself more, right? The things that I do,
mm,
it's not just because I'm going through them mindlessly. I say I'm going to do them and I accomplish them and I complete them. And that to me is something that builds that integrity and it builds character. And it reminds me that I do love myself and I'm doing these things for myself, and sometimes for other people too, right?
yeah.
We want to build others up and lift them in their spirits too, and so that's how we build trust with other people, is by
Mm,
being there for them. As a coach, me working in fitness, I'm constantly pushing people physically, but I'm also putting information into their brain mentally and telling them, you can do this, you've got one more
mm.
rep, you have the extra 5 pounds of energy, like you can do these things. And that to me is giving them a little bit of hope, a little bit of light, and some energy to light them up.
Absolutely. And then when it comes to essentially contribution, which is what you're doing when you're giving to other people, what I found is that tends to not in a like bad way distract me from like my own stuff, but also it helps me pour into others. Right. So for you, how important has contribution and community? Because I've seen some of the things you've done of building homes and all these really cool things, right? So how important has that been in your evolution and your growth?
It's everything. It takes my problems out of perspective and it reminds me that everything that I have going on in this tiny little world of mine is so small compared to the big
Mm,
world problems out there, and other people who are going through very similar or different things as well, that
mm,
are incomparable to what I'm experiencing, because they don't have electricity, they don't have a floor to sleep on, they don't have bed or furniture or
mm,
water that's running or a bathroom that works, right? They don't have these things. And so when I'm over here stressed or overwhelmed of my day to day, I remind myself that it's not that big of a deal and I can
mm,
also overcome it. And it's, I trust in myself that, and I trust in God that it's going to be okay all in the end, right? And so I feel like building homes for families has changed my perspective, and it's something that puts me into that state of gratitude.
mhm.
And it's that to me is like the magic potion right there, is gratitude.
Yes, yes. And so, can you give us an example where maybe you didn't have to fly somewhere or drive somewhere to get that big boost of gratitude, but what's maybe an example that can remind us all that we can actually tap into gratitude fairly quickly?
I think paying it forward is one of the first things that you can do. And so
Mm,
if you see trash on the floor or something, you can pick it up, right? I'm such a
mm,
huge person of ocean conservation. My friends call me mermaid, and I love being someone who goes out and on the beach and cleans up the trash, right? But that's such a simple
mm,
act of people take notice and they'll say thank you, right? People will see these things. The other thing that I notice is paying it forward, where you'll treat someone to a cup of coffee. All of a sudden, you see how much it makes their day, and they'll do something to pay you in return. Like it's the law of reciprocity. So I think of like
mm.
that to me is that people will want to return favors. They'll want to come back full circle and give you that expression of their gratitude, which puts you back into a state of gratitude yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's interesting, right? Because I think that's the big part there is that we're not alone. Like we're part of a community, we're part of an ecosystem, we're part of something more, but sometimes the negative can be so loud that it lies to us and it keeps us in this bubble. So, um, what else have you noticed that allows you to remember, like, wait, I'm not alone or I'm not the only one that's dealing with this stuff?
Whew. I think having friends and a good group, like a good circle of people whom I
Mm,
trust, right? Too. So
yes.
that person that I trust and share my deep, vulnerable feelings with, but then also the circle of friends who are inviting and remind me that they're creating that space of safety too, to share
Mm,
through their own vulnerabilities as well. And so I feel
mhm.
like it helps build connection, it helps people grow together. And that to me is like the biggest piece right there of coming back into that state of gratitude.
Hmm. And so for those that are listening and they're like, well, yeah, but I don't know, it's hard to be vulnerable and it's hard to trust others. What's the recommendation there?
You don't have to share details. You don't have to share your deepest, darkest secrets. But if you feel like sharing that you're going through something tough or that
Mm,
you're having a challenge and you request maybe a prayer, like a hey, a prayer request for me,
mhm,
right? I just think of that. Like I'm going through a really tough day right now or I have an emotion. I say don't put the mask on and don't show face of I have to hide my expressions or feelings to someone. Just be
mm,
real with them. I think the more that we are real and honest and vulnerable with each other through the little even just like glimpse of sharing,
yeah.
then I think that to me is such a superpower.
Yes, absolutely. Especially in this day and age with like Instagram and all these things that it's easy to compare ourselves, right? And we can feel like, well, everybody's everybody's living a perfect life, right? So what about there? How would you also recommend someone to maybe manage what they're consuming or focused on?
If social media is giving you too much noise and distraction, delete the app. If you are spending too much time scrolling, comparing, delete the app. I have friends who do little digital detoxes and they will spend a day away from their phone or a day away from phone calls and people and noise and all of that, where they're not having to stress over what's going on in the outside world. They just focus on themselves and
Mm,
keep life simple that way. But if deleting the app is something that you don't want to do, then unfollow the people or mute the people that you don't want to see anymore, or just manage who you are following on social media. And you can mute stories, you can mute posts, you can, um, like I said, just remove them as a follower if you want. And you can
mm,
also have them not engage with you either. But I'm a big fan of just screen time is something that's playtime. And so it's not fully reality, right? We all have these highlight reels, we all show our
mhm,
best selves, but I feel like I do sometimes well, I hear many times people are always like, "Wow, you look like you've got it all together and you've got the career and the success and you're fun. You have the amazing vacations going on and all these different things, right?" And I'm like, "Yes, but I'm still a human. I'm still struggling. I still have my real problems too." And so even today, I posted a story that I was at the gym and I was crying and I was in the middle of just a very overwhelming day. And it was just one of
mm,
those things where I'm being a girl and I'm being vulnerable and I'm sharing that it's not always rainbows and butterflies. And as a
yeah.
coach in the fitness world, I too have hard days at the gym that I don't want to be there and I don't want to work out, and it's real. And so the more people see that, I got so many DMs this morning from people just sending love or saying that they're going through the same thing. And it's not to say like we need to be in this whoa whoa energy of like we're both in our stuck in our sorrows, misery loves company type of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, all right, someone's going through it now, I have the opportunity to make their day better and bring some light and positivity into their world, and hope that maybe that'll, again, law of reciprocity, that they'll bring it back towards me as well in return and say, I hope you have a great day too, right? And really mean it,
Mm.
because we both talked about the realness of not having the best start to the day, maybe.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's interesting because vulnerability can feel unsafe, right? But in reality, to your point, you don't have to share everything, but when you do that, it actually helps you attract people or circumstances that can then help you feel even more safe.
Look what you just did. You said you don't have to share everything. You just created a state of safety for me, right? Like that to me is huge of, all right, now I want to share more because you just
Mm,
told me like I have permission to keep things private, or if I want to myself, but it's giving
mm,
me the open invitation to say like, wow, this person is putting a boundary on, or they're doing that for me, where I can open the door and I can now let some space in for that safety to follow through, right?
yes, yes, yes. Well, see, and see, that's the interesting thing is like sometimes it's that we're stuck in our head, right? Like instead of expressing. So Why is that? Is it just because maybe it's a skill we need to acquire, or why do we do that sometimes?
I think that it's human nature. I think that it's something that we naturally will tell people, it's okay, you don't have to do this, or it's okay. Like, we just love telling people
Mm,
it's okay. And I think that's something that that just need in this world is to have permission to do things, right? So we
oh,
like to ask for permission and we want it in a subconscious way. And
mm,
I think that that comes from friendships opening up, like I told you earlier about people wanting to be vulnerable, so they share something which makes you want to share something, or they tell you it's okay, you don't have to share details, which makes you feel
yeah.
safe to not have to share details. And you
Hmm.
you create a boundary for yourself and you set that where you don't feel like people are taking advantage of you, right? But I think more than anything, it's human nature to want to give permission like that.
Yes, and so now on a macro scale, right? Like with certain things happening, we'll just put it that way in the world, right? How, and I'm getting chills thinking about it. How do we still connect and maybe express, hey, I'm feeling sorrow, I'm feeling sadness, or I'm feeling anxiety, while not allowing us to get pulled into these kind of narratives or these, you know, things that are going on? Well, what do you recommend there? Because it's a bit of a challenge.
That's a great question. I feel like from a macro perspective, we are more connected, but also disconnected. And we have access, like I said, to these little devices in our hands all day
Mm,
long that give us the superpower of connecting with anyone in the world we wanted to. I could DM the president if I wanted to, right? Or I could talk to any celebrity and hope that they respond, but I get the opportunity to go directly to them, connect with them, and reach out.
yeah.
And I feel like, but we are so caught up in maybe I'll ignore your call but I'll text you back, right? Or
Mm,
there's so many different platforms of communication where people get lost in translation, right? They get lost through the communication platforms that they're not really fully being connected. So I feel like if someone is at a point where they want to be vulnerable and be connected with someone, I'm a big fan of eye contact,
mm,
uh, undivided attention where it's no device, no phone, or if you're on the device right now, like you and I are on this platform, we are still
mm,
making eye contact, right? Like we are still at a point where we have undivided attention. My phone is on do not disturb right now. It's on a point where I did everything to give my time and attention to you so I can connect with you. And I feel like that just creates value. It creates love. It creates a sense of just worthiness to each other. So that way
mm.
we leave this conversation feeling better than how it started, right? We leave, or than how
Yes.
our state of being was when we started.
Absolutely. So then let's talk about philosophies, and then as we wrap up, maybe your parting thoughts there. But for you, with it, with everything that you've gone through and everything that I'm sure you've grown through, like we all have, right? At this point, what is the philosophy that you live by? Because also through your Instagram and through the things you post, I can see a lot of joy in you. I can see like just a lot of good energy that radiates. But is that your philosophy? Like, is your life now about living with joy, or what is it about?
I believe that joy became a natural state of being and a practice that had to become a practice through that so I can make it a natural state of being because I feel like I have overcome so much depression and I'm bipolar, right? So I have bipolar disorder, and I know that that's something that gives me super high highs and super low lows, and I just don't always showcase the low lows. I'm not somebody that goes on social media and is like, well, you should
You know.
I probably would A, lose a lot of followers, or B, feel like people are judging me, and I would rather people judge me like you just did and make me feel like I'm a positive person because that lights me up, right? So if
Mm,
I portray that image on social media and I'm coming off as a personal brand, that's somebody that's joyful, then
mm,
I know that that was a practice and something that I had to work really hard at to make it feel natural. And my philosophy on it is you need to make these things ingrained, like I had mentioned, by asking for help, by
Mm,
also being consistent, right? And number one, resetting and showing up too is number two. But then also being consistent and being disciplined. So making it a daily practice where you get into that place, you get into that state of being, and you shove the demons in the back and you let them speak to themselves and you ignore them to the point where they don't exist anymore because you are so concerned with the positivity and the outlook and the future and what's making you a better person at the end of the day.
I love that. And so if, this was, how can I phrase this? So if this was your opportunity, right? Let me put it that way. If this was your opportunity to broadcast one single message to the entire world, and then all of a sudden the whole internet shut down and it was like the last message we all heard, what is that message for the people?
Everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end.
Mm,
I believe that if you were to put yourself into a place that feels safe, then you will also believe. And with that belief will come the integrity to continue to do the things that you say you're going to do and show up the way you are to be the person that you are meant to be.
wow, look at that. Thank you so much. Well, it's been a pleasure and an honor to connect here, and there's so many golden nuggets. But anything else that you'd love to share?
I'm so grateful to be on the show and I really appreciate your time, and just loved this conversation. So thank you.
No, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for tuning in.